criteria, concentration thresholds, things of that nature, the competition authorities' numbers would trump those of anybody else. So we gave certain basic rules, because we really don't have the option of allowing for forum shopping also. Because if you really go back and think about it, much of the energy of our system, of the telecom sector, that is running today, was created by the breakup of AT&T. And AT&T was broken up after the Federal Communications Commission, the sector regulator, threw up his hands and actually gave evidence in court. I think it was Hinchman, chief economist, who said, we can't regulate this anymore. And the more or less the same cast of characters went over to DOJ and they broke up the company. So that worked. As I said, I like the end result, but the process I don't think we can afford in our countries.
1 minute for your question.
Well, in a minute, let me give you a summary of what I think, right, rather than what should be done. The first thing, though I do not remember you having ever said it, but just in case you were thinking about it, that we have to keep two things separate, because it's not like any other product or any other market. It's that one is the production of ideas. The other is the trading of ideas. So when I talk about the market for ideas, I'm talking about the trading of ideas, and not necessarily are the producers and traders that closely linked as in the other markets. Now, when it comes to the production of ideas, these markets are not very important. But realizing the potential of the ideas, these markets are very important. There is a very strong, there is a very wrong belief that the more incentives you give, people become Einsteins. That has never happened in history, right? On the other hand, if you give more incentives to the market for ideas, that is to say, have well-defined rights, have the infrastructure for trading and all of that, have proper private property protection, then what you do is realize the potential value of these ideas, because the idea in its stage has no value. It has to be commercialized. Now that step is where all the action is, right? And that is where the focus is usually. But actually the market for ideas works behind it, right? And that is the one I'm focusing on. And for that, you do not need any of the things. You need good public education, of course. You need the general environment of questioning, of not learning by rote, all the good things that we talk about, right? And don't do. But one last thing I have to say over here is that it is interesting to see what various countries have done, and since we are now in the process of thinking about these things, it is important to know why what has worked where, right? Now, in the US, we talk a lot about patent trolls, but the universities are the biggest patent trolls, right? The biggest non-producing entities. Now, in the US, the university owns the patents. In Europe, the individual researcher owns the patent. Now, it would be interesting to see how this plays out. In Europe, already many people are up in arms with this new patent law, simply because in Europe, the history has been of state-funded education. So many people, and of course, you know the relationship between Europe and the US, right? However friendly they might be. Now, they have suddenly realized that all the venture capitalists come from the US, right? And the venture capitalists come and buy up these new ideas. So they don't like this at all, and they say that we are paying twice. First we pay through the government in educational institutes for developing the idea, and then we pay the venture capitalists for buying the output from that idea. So there is a lot of discussion now going on in Europe, and whether the US problem is that it is not clear that if you have a 10-year system and all of that, that the university has the right incentives to commercialize your idea or to help commercialize your idea. If your senior professor, your senior person's idea has not yet been commercialized. It's just like, no, because then the university system becomes just like any R&D producing company, that do I, release the third generation or wait for the fourth generation output, right? The university faces the same problem. And therefore the whole idea of public knowledge, it's not clear. So it's a very complicated area, but ideas do not get produced because of how the rest of the markets work.
I think it's been an interesting session. I'd like to thank Subhashish, Rohan, and Eric, and also ICRIER, who's taken up a subject and will continue to do work and research in this area. All questions now, very conveniently, will be over tea.
Since the chair of the session has thanked everybody else, but nobody has thanked the chair, on behalf of ICRIER, let me say thank you to the chair for coming and chairing the session and doing a wonderful job. And thanks to all the panelists. We'll reassemble in about 20-25 minutes for the last session. Please join us for a cup of coffee.
You should thank the chair even if everybody else has thanked her.